Good morning, Gamecock fans. Today is Monday, June 2nd, the year of our Lord 2025. I'm JC Shurburtt. This is Coffee. Hope you all had a wonderful weekend. I know I did. Let's get started and rocking and rolling. Shout out to my buddy Bill Gunner, 1075 The Game. I'm on with him every Tuesday. You can catch me from 7:15 to 8 if you're in Columbia every morning right after I put up this podcast. He's out on his boat on Lake Murray, and my goodness, I've never wanted to be somewhere as much as that in a while. Had definitely FOMO, but he was out on his boat. Looked like a beautiful weekend in the Carolinas. It was a beautiful weekend for me, and just happy to be back and in the full swing of things as we head into summertime, June 2nd, 2025. Uh, that's the date. That's usually I don't know. The unofficial start to summer is what, Memorial Day? So hope all of you are doing well. Went to the grocery store yesterday to pick up some chicken for my stepsons. My wife was out of the house going and doing some things for her parents. And my goodness, it was a madhouse. People buying ice, people buying coolers. You know, you could kind of tell summer was in full swing. So appreciate you folks listening. Maybe you got to watch some college baseball this past weekend. Not a good weekend for the SEC, obviously, with a lot of teams going out. Not sad to see Vandy go out to Wright State. Um, Kentucky, of course, is still alive, and we know that they beat the Clemson Tigers pretty handily, 16-4. My goodness, Clemson is as a program collectively through three coaches now. They are not doing well as far as getting out of the regional. They did last year and lost to Florida in the Supers, but uh, don't know how many of you are sad about that today, and love the social media reaction where they bring the Gamecocks into the conversation. In baseball, I always say, and it doesn't matter how bad South Carolina was this year, in baseball specifically, and it's a rivalry, and I tried to be very, I don't know, when I'm talking publicly and stuff, I'll joke around sometimes with the rivalry, but I just don't say much about Clemson, or unless it's a positive. I'm making a comparison or something because it doesn't do any good. I mean, what am I going to say about Clemson, even if it's spot on and accurate? That's the least bit negative that anybody's going to pay attention to, So I try not to say it, but I will say, since they drug South Carolina into it on social media and some of their media members did the same, I understand the emotion. I understand the frustration. I understand you're disappointed. Um, but I mean, wow, this is the worst Gamecock team in a half a century. And that's your claim to fame. Their head coach said it too. We'll always have the sweeping of South Carolina. Well, okay. Glad that worked out for you. And then the bullpen thing they did, I'm reading it correctly. For the regional, they adjusted the visitors' bullpen to where the fans are like right. I mean, I saw the video. My gosh, you could punch one of those folks while the pitchers are warming up. I guess that's legal to do, but I mean, is it? I don't know. Didn't help, did it? Maybe they should have put their own bullpen pitchers 3 feet from the fans, 2 feet from the fans to maybe make them pitch a little better. But I don't know, just a lot of interesting things up there with the college baseball thing, and wasn't sad to see them lose, not necessarily because it's Clemson, although I think everybody in Gamecock land takes a little bit of solace when they lose, just like they do to Carolina. But just kind of the way it unfolded, man. I mean, that's a bad look. And especially in baseball, where the baseball gods are a thing. They're gonna seek their vengeance if you disrespect the game. And to me, that's disrespecting the game. Doing what they did with I mean, that's yeah, college players, and it's you just don't. It could be a safety issue at some point. You get some hothead out there and some person over there that's maybe had a few beers, and this happens in every fan base and on every roster. It's not unique to Clemson, and that's trouble waiting to happen. I was beside myself that I saw that. Maybe the camera angle was wrong and they weren't that close. But anyway, I don't want to talk about all that all day. But so they're out. Vanderbilt. Um, we don't have to worry about the Vanderbilt Whistler anymore. And shout out to Derek Scott, the voice of Gamecock basketball and baseball. He came on with us on Friday on the show. We had a kind of a combo show and short show, all that on the live version. Didn't make the podcast version because it was just kind of a short, hey, what's up kind of deal. But he came on with us kind of surprisingly. Want to talk about the regionals, and he mentioned that Vandy. He was like, everybody's kind of on that bandwagon right now. But as we know, sometimes they don't get out of regionals, and they don't. Wright State eliminated them. Texas. I didn't catch the score of that one, but they were losing to the Roadrunners of UT San Antonio. Hmm. Um, I, yeah, Texas lost to UT San Antonio 7-4 in Austin. So the SEC champions of the regular season are out. The SEC tournament champions and Vanderbilt number one overall seed are out. Georgia's out. You know, I could go on down the list, but look, man, just like we heard in football that the league's down. There's I guess an ACC baseball homer on Twitter yesterday, and we'll talk about this a little on the show. Talked about how the committee overrates the SEC every single year, and that it was the time that they were due for this to happen, and but the committee won't give it. And I'm like, look, man, go back. This happens, right? This has nothing to do with strength of conference. John Whittle did mention the other day. He probably will mention it on the morning show later today that he didn't feel like the league was as strong this year. And Whittle's a good observer of baseball. But does that have anything to do? Was the committee were the committees wrong? Um, Gosh, the last 10 years when the league's been dominant. I mean, I think you could certainly make an argument about some teams getting in, if you wanted to over other teams. But gosh, the venom, my gosh. That's just crazy. I mean, I think it's good for college baseball if the SEC doesn't have half the field in Omaha every year. It spreads it out and more people watch the sport. It's still a very regional sport. And it's important in the South. So why would you not want the rest of the country to come along? That means probably more revenue, and that's important these days, and all that. I mean, I don't understand the venom, but if you hate the SEC and you hate SEC baseball, then the top two teams in the league supposedly this year, at least the team with the best record in the regular season, and the newcomers, Texas Longhorns, are out, and Schlossnagel's out. So if you're an Aggie, you're probably a little happy about that. And lost to a branch campus of your institution too. That would be like Carolina getting bounced by USC Upstate. The Roadrunners of Texas San Antonio have knocked them out, and it wasn't close in that final game. Texas San Antonio rallied from a 6-1 deficit, won their first meeting with them, and then won 7-4 last night. So anyway, they're out. There's a lot of haters. Oh well, haters gonna hate, right? Speaking of surprises, a couple of things on the recruiting trail that don't have to do with the official visit weekend this past weekend, and we're going to get to that here in a sec. The first thing is I got a little note, I guess, Friday, and then I got another one Saturday morning, and dropped this on thebigspur.com. By the way, right now, if you love recruiting and you want the coverage and you want the information, invest in a Big Spur membership. If you join Big Spur right now, and you pay full price, in other words, monthly or yearly, then you get Paramount Plus for free, and that's awesome. Paramount Plus has a lot of good stuff, all the Taylor Sheridan stuff. If the Godfather trilogy's on there, it's pretty solid on Paramount Plus right now. So go, it's a good time to get a membership. I think there's a discount special that we're running for this month for recruiting. But so check it out. But I put this up there. Landon Duckworth. We've talked about quarterback recruiting for a long time. Jared Curtis, Brady Smigel. And then there's Duckworth. And I've been pretty skeptical about the Gamecocks' ability to get him back in the fold. And I'm not 100% sure right now if that will happen. But I'm more confident now than have been in a long time. And I got a couple of texts that kind of reinforce that over the weekend. I'm not ready to put in a crystal ball prediction for Duckworth to Carolina just yet, but the word around inside the program is that they expect to get him to go to South Carolina. It's stronger outside. I'll be honest, but that's usually sometimes where your best info comes from is other schools and people with connections to other schools that are involved in his recruitment. Now he visits this weekend. He's a four-star quarterback from Alabama. I want to say Jackson, Alabama, but he was committed to the Gamecocks early. So maybe there's a stronger, longer theory at play here. I think Ole Miss, which does have some crystal ball predictions, is very attractive for quarterbacks, obviously, with Lane Kiffin. But Mike Shula has done a lot of good work with quarterbacks as well through the years. And with Ole Miss specifically, if you look at how portal heavy they are now, Austin Simmons, their starter this year, is, I guess they're calling it homegrown now. In other words, he's not a transfer, and I think he's going to be quite good. Man, that kid, I think he's got 3 more years of eligibility at Ole Miss and already has his degree. There's a lot to like about Austin Simmons in that situation. Florida State, obviously, with Gus Malzahn, he's an electric athlete and certainly fits that system. But some of these guys that want to go pro that are great athletes, they don't necessarily want to go run triple option and stuff like with what Malzahn does. Although it would be unfair to sit there and say it's basically triple option. Now with Thomas Castellanos, their quarterback this year, they came down from Boston College. I think they will be pretty quarterback run heavy, like with Nick Marshall they were. Cam Newton was a lot of dropping back and taking off, right? So I don't know. I thought that FSU certainly was a player, and they still are. I mean, he's still going to visited Auburn 2 weeks ago. I'm not sure with Deuce Knight being at Auburn that Auburn's going to be a factor to keep him in state. But yeah, Gamecocks. Mike Shula was a great recruiter at Alabama as a head coach. He understands it. I've said this before. As long as he can pick back up, he's fine. I think recruiting also on a staff is contagious. You go out there and it kind of comes back to you naturally when you return to college football. And Carolina's got a lot of good recruiters on the staff. They emphasize it a lot. Shane Beamer is an excellent recruiter himself. And not that Mike Shula needed any help doing that, but I think he's done a really good job with him kind of selling him on the offense. And we're going to maybe dive into that a little bit this week. What do we expect from Mike Shula's offense this year? And that'll be an episode at a later date. So I think things are looking, and I'll just leave Duckworth at this. To me, it's looking as good as it ever has since he decommitted. And I'll leave it at that. So I think it's good. Now, who is he as a player? He's one that our 24/7 sports analysts like a lot. They have him, I think, higher than everybody else. He's a guy that's probably got some work to do in the passing game, like all high school quarterbacks do. But athleticism, running ability, fluidity, that's all off the charts. I felt like of the three that we talked about months ago, that if it wasn't Curtis, who just does some freaky things on film. Of course, he re-upped with Georgia. So there goes my theory about players that decommit don't normally come back if they're early commits. Well, Curtis did, and now Duckworth might. So maybe my little theory there is wrong, right? I'll admit it, but it isn't really. I mean, I think these are two that are different. Maybe it trends the other way. Anyway, if it wasn't, I liked Smigel. I just thought, well, he's just a guy that you're going to have to protect, and that's always iffy. Yeah, I mean, so you know, especially in the league you play in and the teams you play, because you got to throw Clemson in there. Clemson's always good on the D line, and you got to block them, and you know that's so that you know, Carolina basically does play a ninth SEC game already. Anyway, so I thought if it wasn't Curtis, Duckworth would be the guy, just because I'm with a lot of folks. I value that. You know, I don't necessarily think to be successful you have to be Lenore Sellers. Not many people are. By the way, according to PFF, he broke 18 tackles against Clemson. The only player that broke more in a game was Ashton Genty last year. Good God. And so, anyway, not everybody's Lenore Sellers, but you have to have mobility. Like Cutter Woods. Cutter Woods isn't like this, you know, dynamic runner that's going to take off. And I mean, he's not as fast as like a Connor Shaw or something, but kind of similar to Spencer Rattler. He's mobile in the pocket. And I think you got to at least have that and have arm talent and be able to throw. Mike Morgan always says this: if you can't throw these days, you're dead. So Duckworth fits that bill. He would have been my second one after Jared Curtis. And maybe in some cases, if I really sat down and broke down everything and watched them both, I may go with Duckworth. I don't know. I haven't seen him in person. I'd have to kind of look at him in person to tell you definitively. So good news there. Another surprise. I wonder if this is going to become a trend with wide receivers in the state that are highly recruited. Sequel Patterson, 2027 class prospect from Indian Land, top 20 guy in the country in that class. Well, just like Donovan Murph and Jordan Gitteron, he decided he's going to reclassify. So he's now part of this class. Um, you know, I think it's kind of just up to the individual player. As Shane Beamer pointed out, this is not something South Carolina encourages players to do. But I think that, like I said, recruiting's contagious on a staff. I think sometimes decisions like this are contagious. That's why I was like, you know, the national media wanted to build a statue of Leonard Fournette for opting out. I think the Gator Bowl, his last year at LSU, or one of the bowls, his last year at LSU, maybe Citrus, because he got drafted by Jacksonville. That's what I'm thinking. But Leonard Fournette, I mean, I was good with that. He's a running back. Those guys take shots. They wear down. LSU was not in like a championship situation. He picked LSU. He's from Louisiana. He played his butt off. I didn't have a problem with that, but the media like wanted to build a statue of him because of it and blew it out of proportion. And so now it's popular for kids. They're, you know, he's still college kids, even though they're leaving college, to opt out of a bowl. So sometimes things like that are contagious, especially at the same position. These guys know each other, and so he's following that path. I think that's good as far as getting him. I think it's good for South Carolina on the surface. Hats off to Hale McGranahan for reporting that and breaking it down. So there could be some more good news with wide receivers from within the state, which he's also a guy that could play another spot if he wanted to, but on defense. But he is, and some schools are recruiting him on that side of the ball. So look, I think that's positive. If he does go ahead and commit to Carolina, and after the reclassification and becomes part of this class, it kind of takes a load off me because that's another one. You know, he and Josh Dobson are ranked really high, and they're in state. You know, some of these other guys, like we'll talk about later, I certainly think it would be great if Carolina got them. But yeah, I'm not going to, you know, that's not something that's going to make or break the program in a lot of ways. Maybe it'd make it, you know, if they are that good. But in-state, highly touted guys, you know, if you're the University of South Carolina, you absolutely have to sign maybe more than what your share is when the opportunity presents itself. So Sequel is a 2026 guy now. Now for the visit weekend. Heard from a few folks that it went well. It always does. You know, the visit weekend went well, and they're in the mix with players. That's pretty standard after an official visit weekend. They do a fantastic job with official visits at South Carolina. They had a good group there. I read the other day that KJ Johnson spent an hour talking football with Torian Gray, and that's why they have smaller waves of players. There's more than one way to do recruiting when you're talking about official visit weekends, and some people or some coaching staffs have had success having the big weekend, like 30 folks, and again, it's contagious. The Gamecocks try to limit it to like no more than 12, and that's so they can give the personalized attention, and that's kind of their sales point. Um, the authenticity, the personal relationships, all that is part of the mix when it comes to strategically recruiting at South Carolina. So won a very big game. I'll just update a couple of guys here. Kyrie Adams, the high four-star corner from Maryland, Towson, Maryland, Loyola Bakefield. He had some crystal balls in for Penn State. Penn State was his stated leader. Visit South Carolina. He tells Brian Doan for 24/7 Sports. This visit changed his recruitment. You do have Oregon and some others coming up for him, but looks like Torian Gray's made a move there. Will it hold? Competition's stiff, but the Gamecocks made some waves there with him. And keep in mind, he was supposed to visit unofficially for a junior day or something in February, and because of weather, I think it got canceled or moved back, and he wasn't able to do it. He also had to leave early because he was competing at the Under Armour camp in Baltimore. But man, oh man, um, that kid had a good visit, and I think Carolina's squarely in the crosshairs to snag him. Will he settle down and go back with Penn State? Maybe. Will it be another school that's on the list? Oregon. I always got an Oregon vibe from him a little bit. I don't know why, but it's a battle just like they all are. Same thing happened with Nick Harbor, but I think the Gamecocks have really done well here. It was, most of the time players have good visits. Oh, yada, 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 blah, blah, blah. And then you're like, well, that wasn't, I don't know. It didn't necessarily, but you're reading their mind, and that's impossible. You're reading their mind through a 5-answer interview that they probably really don't want to even give. But the vibe from Adams, though, both with what was out there and then what I've been told, it was good. So that's one I can say definitively Carolina made a move for. Will it be enough? Who knows? Welcome to recruiting. Welcome to big boy recruiting. That's what they call it. Put your big boy pants on. Yeah, you got to put your big boy pants on here with him. KJ Johnson, who I think I think right now he's probably the player that I feel the best about with Carolina. If they push for a commitment or whatever. He mentioned, like I said, Torian Gray. And so here's where he's corner or nickel for him, and he's a tall, longer player. He plays safety and corner at his high school. He's from Birmingham, Alabama. Um, I mentioned before Captain Munnerlin, Darian Stewart were both 3-star kids from Alabama. They turned out pretty well at the University of South Carolina. So he'll continue with it. Ole Miss, Mississippi State. And Ole Miss has obviously been in at Mississippi State. They're kind of local, Birmingham, they're one state over. But West Virginia, and let me tell you why with KJ Johnson that I think if somebody's going to overtake South Carolina, it could be West Virginia. And here's why. Number one, or there's 3 reasons. Number one, Rich Rodriguez is there now. And Rich Rodriguez was at Jacksonville State before in Alabama. So there's probably some relationship there already from early recruiting. Number 2, at West Virginia, Rich Rod as a recruiter the first time, he and his staff had nothing to lose. They just go in there with a machete and shoot their shot, and that happens. I don't know if that's changed in this era or not. It's been a while, but they're going to go depending on how high he is on their board. They'll go all in, and he could be high on their board because this is exactly the type of guy West Virginia, when they were really good under Rich Rod, recruits. They'll go into the South and get athletes, and so he may be higher on their board than the Gamecocks have him, but the Gamecocks have him up there too. Number three, West Virginia has NIL money, as we saw when in basketball when Eagle staff went there. Um, and their state law is kind of very favorable to doing it. It's the only, it's the big school in the state. There are some Marshall people, but a lot of people support that. So what I'm saying is, these days, high school recruiting, people still aren't overpaying and overspending, which is good. Some schools try to, but what I'm saying here is maybe if there's a financial package, if they go in there, it's a scenario I could see. Now, I think Carolina's the clear leader, right? And like I said, I feel best about him right now. I'm just pondering the what ifs, right? Which is what you do in recruiting coverage. You try to read the tea leaves, apply all scenarios, that kind of thing. That's how the people that are in coaching that are good at it do it. It sounds almost borders the lines on paranoia sometimes, but so that's it. But West Virginia, Mississippi State. For him, JB Shabazz came in, had another wonderful visit, spent some time with Lonnie Teasley, gave good feedback. Penn State, North Carolina State, Ohio State, Tennessee on his list. So that's a little bit formidable. I felt really good going in, and I still do. But that's a lot of visits for a player that, while he likes South Carolina and all that, and I think Carolina had a great shot. Has that? Excuse me. I don't want to talk in the past tense here because Carolina easily could end up with him. That's those are some formidable guys, and just kind of like we heard Urban Meyer talk about it during the season about offensive lines. Everybody wants offensive linemen. There was an article that I thought was a little bit hyperbolic, I guess. Talked about how the offensive lines are in crisis. And the gist of the article was, oh, Ohio State and Georgia aren't 16 deep anymore, so there's a crisis. Really? I didn't know that. I didn't know it rose to crisis level because a handful of blue bloods who used to hoard recruits because they couldn't transfer don't have numbers on the offensive line. Welcome to the lived reality of programs like South Carolina. And it's astonishing. I mean, the Gamecocks have held on to their guys that they've recruited out of high school for the most part. Cam Pringle is the exception there. But everybody needs 6'7", 295. And so that's going to get interesting, I think, right there with JB Shabazz. He's a good player, really good player. And like I said, I'm not saying the Gamecocks won't get him. I'm just, again, pondering the what ifs. But I'm a little less bullish about it now, just based on some intel feedback, that kind of thing. I still think it's quite possible. Carter Meadows, the defensive end from Washington, D.C., had a wonderful visit. That's another one. Just shoot your shot. If you're the Gamecocks, keep plugging away. Same with Travis Johnson, the wide receiver from Virginia. Probably leaving somebody out, but that's big. Amari Thomas, the running back committed to Florida State, he had a good visit too. Again, proximity wise, you're dealing with a player that from Blountstown, Florida. He's committed to Florida State. I don't know. I like him though. Carolina wants speed. They ideally for them, they sign like a really fast breakaway running back. And it's not that like Jordan Howell doesn't have speed or Matthew Fuller doesn't have speed. Rasul Faison definitely has speed. With no update there, obviously, although the free Sewell hashtag has made its way around X. And I don't know. I guess Faison probably would only have 1 year left, and Attaway's out of eligibility. But they want speed there, probably both, and they're probably going to have to go to the portal again. Probably both with a high school guy and a portal guy this off season. So we'll see sort of what happens there. Pierre Dean, good visit based on the limited feedback I got from him or from about him. So, overall, eight official visitors in. One's already committed, Anthony Baxter. So the 7 in question If Carolina get three or four of them, great. Two or three, great. That's a good number. That's a good batting average here. And also depending on the mix. But KJ Johnson, Birmingham, Woodlawn, defensive backs, probably at the pole position of most likely, but it's close. It's just one of those things, folks. It's just honest. When you recruit top talent and a lot, and in this bunch, there was only one in-state kid that visited. That's Anthony Baxter. Uh, you know, most programs, they don't bat 1,000. You bring in seven relatively highly regarded players for a visit weekend. One's committed to the school down the road in his near his hometown, and it's Florida State. You don't expect to get all of them. And then, you get North Carolinas and Virginias and Marylands and DCs. So but that's good. That's exactly what, you want to do. It's like panning for gold. You sift, you shift, you shift, and you end up with the gold, Jerry, on the top of it like that. This coming weekend, we're going to preview this on the next episode. I mentioned Duckworth's coming in. This coming weekend's huge. Aiden Harris and Andrew Harris are in. Those are the D linemen from Weddington up near Matthews. Aiden's a D tackle. Says he's committing soon still. Andrew's more of an outside linebacker, edge type for the Gamecock. Zion Giles, offensive lineman, who 24/7 Sports still has as a 3-star. Some have him top 50 in the country. Noah Clark, highly, highly regarded defensive tackle, and a big boy, 6'4", 330 coming in from Jordan High School in Durham, North Carolina. This one's interesting. Kamari Blair, another offensive tackle like Shabazz. He's got Tennessee, Ole Miss, Florida State, Carolina, and this is an interesting one, Wisconsin. And he visited there this past weekend. Wisconsin's got a pretty big tradition of putting out offensive linemen. And by the way, that state has it's like 10 deep over the next 2 cycles on offensive linemen. High hit rate up there for that. But he's coming in 6'6", 280. At least he's on the schedule now. Joel Combe from Marietta, Georgia, Kell High School, taking his visits. He's also got Wisconsin. And then Kosi Barnes from Greensboro Grimsley, another big, long guy. 6'3", 190, visited Rutgers over this past weekend. So that's a big group. That's a big group as far as quality. Yet again, there's 10 scheduled as of now. Make that 9 because Ryan Mosley's still on the schedule I'm looking at, but he committed to Georgia, so I'm not sure that will happen. So the Gamecocks, I think after this visit weekend, like I said, I laid out the scenarios for everybody. I think again, you just keep recruiting them hard and let the chips fall where they may. Good news on Landon Duckworth, I think potentially great news, and then I think pretty good news on Sequel Patterson too, if he can become part of this class. As I guess he was the early 18th ranked player in the country for 2027, which we've talked about, but he is now 2026. So, I don't know. Jordan Gitteron dropped significantly class to class, which when you're talking about numerical rankings like 1 through 20 or whatever, that's to be expected. You're going to drop down the board or whatever. What I don't like is they numerically, they took the star away from Gitteron, man. I mean, that's supposed to be it doesn't make much sense because we talk about all the time about it being a long-term projection. So just because your runway is longer does not mean your projection necessarily changed. I don't know. We can get into that. It's a long summer, folks. We're going to try to get as many topics as we can here on Coffee. John Whittle on the morning show later today to talk about all things. Mike Morgan's the co-host. Phil and I will be along after that to have the show. As the summer vacation season begins on the show. It's a lot of fun, totally different than this, but we'll talk topics, Nana Sports chat box, all that stuff. Certainly we'll get off the rails and do some off-topic stuff as well. Don't forget, www.thebigspur.com for the latest in recruiting and Gamecock coverage. Also, if you want to help out the NIL calls, GamecockCoffee.com, GarnetTrust.com. Also, our friends at Palmetto Golf and Belt. Check them out. PalmettoGolfing.com. Lots and lots of people have been buying their products, and we love it. All right. JC Shurburtt is out. This has been Coffee. Happy Monday, everyone, and we'll holla at you soon.